Episode 20.
Double digits, right?
Double digits. Hell yeah.
Welcome back. What's up, shitbags? Episode 20. It just every time. It's crazy that we're here. It's awesome. We can't thank everybody enough. Taylor, Jobtown, Crew First. We talked about them a lot more last episode with David, having a cool run this next couple months where we really get to talk with a lot of them and really, grow that bond. And we wouldn't be here without them and without you guys. So thank you for watching, and let's get right into it, right?
Let's jump into it. Get
Perfect.
some knowledge today.
Hell yeah. Oh, we're going to introduce our next guest. Very, like we talked about, very near and dear to us. He's one of our mentors, taught both of us through our fire school, and we know he's got a lot of great stuff to offer. So we'll bring him in. Garrett.
Hi, guys.
Welcome on.
Hey, Garrett, how's it going?
Good. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah.
Why don't you give a little introduction about yourself? Tell everybody about you.
Like I said, my name's Garrett. Been on Needham and Asha for almost 14 years. It'll be 14 years in July. I've been an instructor at the tech for 12 or 13. I can't remember exactly when I got my instructor certification and got hired there. Before that, I was a student at Fox Valley Tech and graduated in 2008, went to paramedic school in 2009, and now I'm here. So I did take over the fire principles class, which is where I first had you guys as students in 2015-ish, whenever the new building opened up. So still learning probably as much now as I ever have, whether it's, just keeping up on trends or going to different classes here and there, or just learning from students who come through that got something somewhere else and, brought it back to the school or, whatnot. So.
Absolutely. Yeah, it was, we've talked about it. And for those that don't know, at the tech, that fire principles, that's our fire one. So basically it's the first class that we take to get our cert. It's the first certificate we get when we go through the technical college system around here. So, it was a really cool course, and we'll get into it a little bit later, talking about how you bridge that gap. But we learned some things where actually it didn't fall into that realm where everybody says you forget everything you learned in tech college. Now we're going to show you how to do it. You found a way to do that, and we'll have an opportunity for you to talk about that a little later. So,
okay.
We'll let you, keep talking about yourself a little bit. For our first question, how did you get into the fire service?
Kind of the stereotypical or cliche. I had family members in the fire service. My dad was an Oshkosh firefighter for 33 years. He retired about 10 years ago. And then both my uncles worked for Oshkosh, and the other one worked for Green Bay, and they both retired. Rich just retired last year, and Dave was probably 5-6 years ago. So I spent more time in a firehouse as a kid than I probably did at home. My dad was union president in Oshkosh for 10-ish years, and then he was on the state exec board. So I spent a lot of time as a kid sitting around the kitchen table at downtown Oshkosh being taught by all the old guys how to say words I shouldn't say, and drink soda and eat candy, and then send me on my way with my dad all amped up on sugar. So when I was a kid, a lot of the older guys on the fire department were old Vietnam vets. So, they didn't pull punches. It was very straightforward, still very old school fire department at that time. So,
yeah,
learned a lot, wouldn't trade it for the world. And in fact, for the longest time, I was pretty well set on working at Oshkosh, and then Needham and Asha came along, and, I liked it so much that that's where I've stayed. So.
Awesome.
Yeah, cool.
So, going to those first days, what did you do as a new member to earn the respect of your crew?
Oh, probably the exact opposite I should do. I was a pretty mouthy kid. I was fortunate enough going through the tech school to get asked to be a student coach. So I got a lot of additional experience and instruction by going to house burns, assisting the other instructors. Like, I spent a lot of time in a burn room with me and one other student coach, lighting fires, watching fires grow, helping other students that, were a semester or two behind us in the program, basically learning our craft as best we could. So when I got hired, I was a pretty mouthy young kid, which probably set me back quite a bit, especially when I got hired. The next junior guy to me had 4 or 5 years on already.
Oh, wow, yeah.
We had a pretty big gap, and recently we've had a lot of big turnover, but when I got hired, we had captains. We don't have lieutenants. It's just straight fire officer / captain. We had captains who had been captains 10, 12, 14 years already.
Wow.
So a lot of knowledge there. And for a young 23-year-old kid to come in and start telling you, well, this is the way I learned it, probably doesn't go over too well. So I wouldn't change it because I learned some valuable lessons. One of my first captains had a saying, "Hey kid, dummy up." And 14 years in, I don't know if I've really dummied up a whole lot, but I try to take that advice as much as I can. And I had it good in some ways. Some ways it was tough. Like my first assignment, once I got bounced out of our downtown, an outlying station where the other firefighter was 35, 37, the driver was pushing 60, and the officer was 55, 56.
Wow.
So for a 23-year-old kid trying to find some kind of common ground wasn't super easy. But it opened my eyes to, a lot of perspectives. Even though I grew up in a fire department, essentially,
Yeah, absolutely.
it's a little different when you're actually living with 4 other people 24 hours a day, and you're not an 8 or 9-year-old kid. Now you're a 23, 24-year-old kid. So
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely a different world. I mean, when you grow up in the firehouse, you're only there for, the good times. They're there for the little bit, and everybody's always, having a good time or hanging around. You never see or know any of that backdoor, stuff, and just living with the family.
Yep. And, like for a young kid like me at 23, 24, 25, I spent 3 years at an outlying station. And at that time, before a couple of the nursing homes got built out there and the call volume up there started going out, we wouldn't go on a call for 3, 4, 5, 6 days, work days.
Wow.
Oh,
So for a young 23, 24-year-old kid, it's like, all right, I got to figure out something to make it through.
yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
Me and my captain got along pretty well. He hunted and fished. I hunt and fish. I shouldn't say I fish a lot, but I fish here and there. We'd talk for a day or two, but a 55, 56-year-old, farm kid and a 23-year-old city kid only have so much to talk about. You run out of things. So we did the best we could. It was weird. He and I, when the way our rotations worked, if he had to move downtown to move up to be a shift commander, which is kind of our battalion chief, if you will, I'd get bounced down there to backfill for a firefighter slot. And we figured out ways like we'd record 16 and pregnant on every slot on the DVR downtown. So we'd figure out ways to at least have fun and, get through, 3 24-hour days.
Yeah.
On our shift schedule. You have to make it work. You just do.
Yeah.
You don't have a choice.
Yeah, you don't know where your family members are. You got to work with them. So
yeah, you don't always get assigned with your best friends. When you're a new kid coming into the department, especially at the time I did, we weren't hiring groups of 3, 4, 5 people. We were hiring one every 2 to 3, 4 years.
Yeah, wow.
You got to figure out a way to make friends with people because you're not coming in with your buddies from school.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So,
yeah, very different world. Continue to talk on crew. What do you think brings a crew together the best?
The easy answer is mealtime. The guys who work with me, they'll tell you, like, I'm a big sit around the table and eat meals together, cook meals together.
Yeah.
And for me, that was always like hey, you and I can disagree. We can have a knockdown, drag out, borderline screaming at each other argument. But when it's mealtime, we're done. Right?
Mm-hmm.
We're going to sit down. We're going to have mealtime like we're a family. And then when mealtime's done, if we want to go back to screaming at each other, we'll go back to screaming at each other. But mealtime is, when we sit down and try to find common ground and try to build those bonds. That's the easy answer. I think everybody kind of does that. Every firehouse in this country kind of has that. And shared experiences, whether it's being on a bad call, being on a lot of calls together. I was with, one of three brothers on our department for the first 10 years of my career. We had two brothers and a cousin. They all had the same last name. I was with one of them the first 10 years of my career. So we had a lot of shared experiences working together. Even the other night at work, right before I went on vacation here, we were reminiscing about COVID. And how much that changed the fire service, some of the stupid things that we had to do during COVID, how it's intense. I mean, we were talking the other night about having to sit there and take our temperatures twice a day at work, and, just little things like that you start to, build bonds because you've gone through the same things. A lot of us on Needham and Asher right now are having our first and second kids. There's probably, I would say, 5 or 6 of us that have had a kid in the last 2 years. So we all have young kids. So we all kind of bond over that. I just spent the day yesterday helping a buddy of mine build a swing set, play set for, his 2 kids. So I think that's how you bring a crew together, is those shared bonds. Whether, like I said, it can be on calls, but when you really look at it, the calls, unless you're in a really busy department, they're a small percentage of what we do in a day. So, you have to, I shouldn't say you have to, but it makes the job a whole lot easier if you find ways to get along and come together. My shift last year, we played cards every night. I know it's stereotypical, all firemen sit around and play cards, but after dinner we'd sit down, we'd play cards for an hour or 2 hours, and like another one of those, like, hey, let's put our differences aside. We may have had an argument, or we may see things politically different, but hey, let's put our differences aside and sit down and let's be a family for the next hour. So even sitting and watching movies, it's a little harder now because everybody's got their face in a phone. But you still have to make that effort. You're there for 24 hours. You might as well get to know people.
Yeah, right.
It's true. It's true.
Yeah, we try and do movies at least. We were watching some shows yesterday, but now that it's getting nice out too, we do a lot of bags. So we'll have our cornhole, whatever you call it. But our PD will come over and we'll play with them. And it's just in our lower parking lot around back. Basketball is a big one now that everything's getting nicer. Like, try and keep some of those activities that you can all do together that really keeps you off your phone, because hard to play basketball and stare at your phone at the same time.
We do what's called riding the rail. I work downtown, so I have anywhere from 7 to 10 people at my station now, and we're right downtown city of Neenah. So we have, a block away from our stations, all the bars, all the breweries, all the high-end stores, things like that. So we'll sit out with the doors open, and we'll just sit on the ramp at 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock at night, and people watch with the Brewer game going on in the radio in the background. So, it doesn't take a whole lot of effort. It really doesn't.
No.
It's, you get on the intercom and you say, hey, we're going down to ride the rail, or hey, we're going down to work out. When I started, nobody worked out. Like, I was probably one of 3-4 people on my shift that would work out. And now it's almost everybody on shift, at least at my station, works out. Once in a while, somebody will bow out just because they're tired, or they're sore. They're nursing some kind of injury or something, trying to get it to, back to somewhat 100%. So, but I mean, that change in the last 10, 15 years is a total 180 from where I started. So,
yeah, awesome. Our last kind of generic question that we ask everybody, which I know you said you watched some episodes, so you may have a little more insight, but we won't give you any more, is just why are we here?
At the end of the day, everybody has their own motivations, but you have to want to help people, even if it's something simple like going to a lockout, or all the way up to going and pulling somebody out of a fire. That's why you're doing this. if you're doing it for any other reason, you're going to burn out really quick. You, there's too many things that we have to know how to do that to just go through the motions. And you know what? Yes, do guys do the professional side of it because we get paid and it allows us to support our families? Absolutely. I got lucky. I fell into this. I fell in love with it when I did fall into it. I fell in love with the station side of it before I fell in love with the actual firefighting side of it, just because of growing up.
Yeah, absolutely.
But you have to want to make situations better. There's too many other political outside influences that if you're just going through the motions, it's going to eat you alive. Whether it's politics, whether it's budgetary stuff, if you're just going through the motions, you're going to be pretty bitter by the end. So you have to really want to make things better. And it's going to sound cliche, but it is a reality. Like, I got into this and I fell into the passionate side of this because, especially now that I have a family, do I want me coming to get my family? If things go wrong, do I want me or somebody who is as passionate and has spent the time coming to get my wife and kid if I'm at work? I don't live in the city I work in, so I have to put my faith that when the fire department for the city I live in shows up, that there are people on that truck that are going to be borderline sociopathic about getting my wife and kid out of the building. So
damn right. Yeah, I forgot which one we were talking about now that's with, but just that be the one that you would want rescuing you or your family. Like, if you don't think that, or you're not confident that you can be that, you got to take that look in the mirror. Like, whoever we were talking in one of the previous episodes on there, like, I don't know, I know a lot of great firemen, better firemen than me, and there absolutely will be, but you at least should be confident in your abilities and know that I want it to be me that that's going there. Send me. I want that. Like, yeah, there's always going to be someone better, but if you're pushing and using them as mentors and role models, you should be pretty damn good.
And I'd be lying if I didn't always, have that little doubt in the back of my head, like, hey, did I prepare enough? Did I, there's always that little bit of doubt. But I think, you even talk to professional athletes. Like, I follow a lot of Kobe Bryant's, stuff before he passed away. I have a lot of books by Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant, and Dwayne Wade's personal trainer that I read. And there's always that little bit of doubt, like, you're not 100% in control of every situation you walk into. The fire does get a say of what happens.
Yep.
So, but if you put the time in, put the effort in, do the drills, do the training, at the bare minimum, make sure your fundamentals are strong. And, not everybody on, the championship Lakers was on Kobe Bryant's level. But I guarantee you all their fundamentals are pretty sound.
Yeah.
So, if there's a lot of ways to contribute without being that superstar. But if, you got to make sure that your basics are sound so that you're not hurting things more than you're helping.
Yeah,
so.
Absolutely. Yeah, well said, well put. Our first kind of a personalized questions, because you're, right now you're one of the drivers. What are your first priorities on the fire ground as the driver, or your MPO, heavy equipment, whatever you call it?
I'll back up. It starts with my truck checks in the morning, making sure everything's where I want it. I would say my first day, and we work the California plan, so the 1 on 1 off, 1 on 1 off, 1 on 4 off. So the first day of what we call our swing, I'm extremely thorough. I flush all my valves, all my ones that aren't connected to hose lines. Obviously, I'm not going to flush my pre-connected with water.
Not on purpose, at least.
Yeah, I've seen that happen. I've seen 5-inch get charged before it's out of the bed too.
Oh yeah,
that's not good.
Oof, that's a bad day.
Yeah. flush all my valves, make sure all my drains are empty, make sure I don't have water, especially in winter, make sure I don't have water leaking where I don't want it to leak to. Make sure all my equipment is where I want it. Um, you know, those little things that if you overlook, not to say I'm perfect, I miss stuff. You try to prevent the mishaps and the things that are going to cost you efficiency and time before you even step on the fire ground. And our trucks, fortunately, our new deputy chief, who's been with us a handful of years, is making things way more streamlined and efficient on our trucks, carrying less equipment. Like we don't carry 10 adapters, double male, double female, 2.5, double male, double female, 1 3/4, 3 of each. We're down to like 2 of each, fortunately, so that helps. And then, once we get that fire call, number one is getting there. I learned from some really good drivers, like when I got hired and coming up through the years, we had guys who were drivers for 18, 19, 20, 21 years.
Oh, yeah.
So I just watched them as much as I could, 2 or 3 of them, even if they knew where they were going, they went to the map. So I've made that kind of a habit of mine. Like I don't go to the hard copy map anymore, but I'll pull it up on my phone, or we have a digital, map with a route in our stations now on a TV screen. So I'll just make sure that like, hey, that jives with what I'm thinking when I'm going there. And then I've got a really good officer on my truck that, as I'm getting in, I just say, hey, this is what I'm thinking. This is the route I'm taking. Am I missing anything? Am I missing road construction that didn't get posted? Things like that. We have one street in the city that, even though it goes through on the railroad tracks, the railroad actually has it shut down. So it's a split street. Just making sure, like I'm not missing something like that.
Yeah.
And then once I get there, it depends on what truck I'm on. I switch every month. So I'm in a dual truck house. So 1 month I'm on the engine, the next month I'm on the Quint. And our Quint operates 99% of the time like a true truck company. Yeah, we have a pump and a tank and hose lines, but 99% of the time it's search or vent.
Yeah.
If I'm on the engine and I'm first in, my number one priority is making sure my pump's set, helping the firefighter get the line off the truck if he needs it. For the most part, our firefighters are really good at getting lines off the truck and not needing a ton of help, but helping them get the line off and then getting them water so that hopefully by the time the officer is done with the 360, firefighters got the door popped and they're ready to go in if they're not already in, 3, 4, 5 feet and starting to, put water on the fire if it's warranted. Once that's done, then it kind of depends. Depends on where my second in crew is coming from. I might catch my own water supply. If I got a hydrant within 100 feet, I'm just going to hand jack 100 feet of 5-inch and do it myself. Let the next in crew get the second line off. If it's going to be a little bit longer lay, then I'll pull the second line and then probably start throwing ladders. Especially if it's a second, a 2-story house, 1.5 story, split level, quad level. Get that second line laying in the yard and then get that ladder put up. And then after that, you just kind of start paying attention to what people need. If the crew's struggling moving hose inside the building, get to the door and help them move hose in. If it looks like we're going to need a lot of bottles, start pulling bottles. If it looks like I'm going to need a fan set up, get my fan set up, get my RIT stuff set up so that when our third or fourth or fifth in engine, if, we got Mavis or somebody coming, have the RIT stuff laying there. So all they got to do is walk up and they're good to go. But my big priorities are get water to the fire attack crew and, then get water supply. And then after that, second means of egress, trying to just make things efficient as possible. I get bored driving. So
we all do.
I understand.
I stay pretty active on the fire ground if I can. Otherwise, I start twiddling my thumbs and then I start looking for things I shouldn't be doing, and I get myself in trouble. So if I'm on the Quint, it kind of depends on the scenario. If it looks like I'm going to have to set the stick up, which is pretty rare for us, I'm probably setting the stick up. Otherwise, I'm just another crew member.
Yep.
Our Quint operates as most of the year a 3-man company. However, our third is our daytime, or is our inspector during the day. So they have their own car during the day. They'll go out and do inspections. Our inspector does inspections in one city. The Quint inspector does. And then they'll respond in their own vehicle to fire. So they might be 5-10 minutes out after we get on scene, depending on where the fire is. And then after 4 or 5 o'clock, they're just on the truck as the third firefighter. So it's a little bit of a, a juggling operation as far as, filling in holes. Generally speaking, though, our drivers for the time being, I'm the second junior driver on the department, maybe third junior, I can't remember. And I've got 14 years in, so we're pretty experienced in the driver department. So the driver on the Quint usually has quite a bit of experience. Now, like when I'm off work on Saturday, the driver on the Quint might have 3, 4, 5, 6 years on. It all kind of depends. So we have to know a lot. And then the other thing I have to juggle while I'm downtown is we have a dive team in our boat and squad are stationed out of our downtown station. So our drivers have to know how to operate the boat, know how to be the primary dive tender out on the boat if we're diving off the boat. So you have a lot of responsibilities as a driver down by us. So.
Cool. Is that typically the squad driver is on the boat, or is that just any of the drivers at the station?
Every shift commander does it different. My shift commander, the Quint crew, 9 times out of 10 is going to be your squad/boat crew. On my shift, I'm fortunate enough downtown that I've got a guy, one of my good friends. He's very familiar with the Lake Winnebago system. So a lot of times if he's driving the engine and I'm driving the Quint, he'll end up driving the boat just because he's very, very knowledgeable about the lake, the boat, things like that, where I've never owned a boat. So for me, my first time running a boat was on the department. My first time backing up a trailer was after I got hired.
Oh, yeah.
So, I'll give my shift commander credit. He knows where and how to put people where they're positioned to succeed. So.
Yeah. And that's the most important part. I mean, everybody needs, we've talked about it before. I'm sure every place has talked about it. Like everybody needs to have those fundamentals or basic knowledge. But, Brennan, we've got a hovercraft and Brennan's very comfortable and great on that. So, you got those things like that where somebody's better or somebody's the best choice for that. You're going to put them in that position to succeed.
Now when he's off and, we have a mixed, crew downtown, chances are if I'm there, I'm driving it.
Oh, yeah.
Because that's the way it falls. So you still have to know what you're doing.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
I'm not going to go ripping across the lake at 40 miles an hour because I don't know where all the, the danger spots are. I've got a rough, the big ones, but I'm going to be a lot more cautious about how I go about things. So
absolutely. Yeah. Well, now we're gonna, give you the opportunity and start dipping into the instructing side, which we're really excited to talk about. So, first off, like you said, you're on, for 14. You started about 12 or 13. So, pretty quick. What motivated you to get into instructing?
That student coaching program that I had, the opportunity to be a part of, right after I finished Firefighter 1/Firefighter Principles. My Firefighter 1 instructor, who's now the chief in a city just north of us, my semester of Firefighter 1 was his first semester teaching at Fox Valley Tech as the program chair, lead Firefighter 1 instructor. And he kind of started this program, or took this program that was really in its infancy and kind of grew it. And me and a buddy just happened to fall into it. And he and I actually work on Neenah Menasha now together. And that's what really got me into it. And at the time, we had a lot of responsibility given to us. It was really, it's not like it is now where you have 5, 6, 7 instructors or four instructors, one for each station. It was really this lead instructor and one other, and then us student coaches. So a lot of times we had a lot of responsibility of, hey, you're going to go light this fire. And you're going to have to watch it, and you're going to have to make a determination on, is this good enough? Does this accomplish our goals? You know, are you going to have to bail out because it's getting a little too big? You know, and go from there. So, and then once I got on obviously they're not going to let me be an instructor before I have a fire department job. There's state statutes that say you have to have X amount of time and X amount of experience, things like that. So then once I graduated, I went to paramedic school, finished paramedic school. And then once I got on Needham and Asha, they were sending everybody through officer certification at the time. Like I was still on probation, and they were sending anybody that wanted to go on duty, they would basically give you officer one. And they had just made instructor one part of the officer one requirement. So you had to take instructor one anyway. So I was like, well, I want to be an instructor, so might as well get my officer one, even though it's going to be 20, 25 years before I make officer. So I got that, and Fox Valley Tech hired me on initially just as what we call a 47 level instructor. So you're just doing like the night classes, basically anything that's not part of the degree. So your basic firefighter one class, things like that. And then I had to have X amount of experience on before I could teach in the degree program, which I got really lucky that the tech school had just opened up its new public safety training center, which is a massive facility.
So cool.
We had a little bit of a transition period at the time. The lead instructor for firefighting principles moved up to be the associate dean, which at that point you're no longer doing classes anymore. You're running a facility, basically the equivalent of a deputy chief level. And then the firefighter one instructor the new firefighter one instructor who had been there for a long time, had enough on his plate that he needed somebody to basically run the practical portion of the firefighting principles class. So he and I team taught it, and that's how I got into it. And it runs that way pretty much to this day. There's a full-time instructor at the tech that does my lecture portion on Tuesdays, and then I do the practical portions on Fridays. Otherwise, I'd be taking trades at work till I die. So I'd be paying back trades after I retire. So and it works out pretty good with my schedule. Unfortunately, no matter what I do, I miss a couple weeks of class. I could take all my vacation during the school year and still probably miss a couple weeks of class just because things fall. And I like to take my vacation over summer so I can kind of check out and get away for a little while.
Yeah.
And I've got plenty of other instructors that, it's a simple phone call. Hey, I'm working this day. This is what we're doing. And I trust them to run it almost as seamlessly as I would run it. So, so that's kind of how I got into it. I wanted to basically get anywhere from 18, 19-year-old kids. I've had 40-something-year-old adults come through my class. I wanted them to get into this profession that over time has given me so many opportunities. I mean, I'm not sitting in the house I'm sitting in without this profession. So I want people to get into to me, it's the best profession in the world.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
So
yeah, best job in the world. And I mean, continuing on with that, how do you drive your passion into your students?
I think you can't fake it. I mean, students nowadays, millennials, Gen Z catch a lot of crap, but they see through fake stuff pretty easy. And that's just a product of the times we live in. You can look anything up now. I mean, just look at all the firefighting YouTubes and Instagram reels and Facebook pages. You can look up anything you want. And so you have to actually have that passion and show it. And you have to show that you're human. There's some calls that I'll never talk about, but I'm pretty open about some of the things I've seen, some of the things I've done. And I'm very open about, we can talk about how I've changed search and rescue in the last couple of years in my class. Pretty open about some of my failures, and I just tell my students like, hey, I taught it this way for 5 years. And then I went through this experience and it was nothing like the way I taught it. and it forced me to change. So now I'm teaching it like this based on this experience. And if I could go back and do it all over again and change that experience, I would, but I can't. So now I'm teaching it this way so that you guys don't have to experience what I did and go, oh crap, this isn't the way I was taught. This isn't the way I thought it would go.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
Experience is a funny thing. It gives you the test first, and then if it gives you the lesson, and if you're not paying attention to the lesson, it's just going to keep testing you, and you're going to keep failing. So, you know, how you bridge that gap as an instructor is, I don't have it figured out yet, and I've been doing it quite a while. I do the best I can, you know, but there are limitations. You know, I can't make a fire in a burn room anywhere near what a real fire is. I just, with the limitations of 1403, the limitations of what we are allowed to burn, how we're allowed to burn, the buildings we're allowed to burn in. We hardly can do house burns anymore. It's hard to make things realistic. So using my experiences and my failures and my lessons learned to get my students to see, like, hey, Garrett is human. Garrett does make mistakes.
Yeah.
He's not this Superman of an instructor that knows everything, but he's willing to take his experiences and adjust the teaching style and the lessons so that hopefully my students don't have to go through the, oh my God, this isn't the way I thought it was going to be.
Yeah.
What my instructor's teaching me. So,
no, and you know, like, you know, we've talked about, we can speak firsthand that is very true. And you do the best that you can with the, you know, the limitations you have, which will tie into our next question. But like, you know, like the saying goes, experience is that thing you get right after you need it.
Yeah.
So, you know, you're never going to be able to. So being able to realize some of that and being, you know, comfortable enough to fail or humble enough to admit failures, like that's the most important part, because you have those instructors, you know, not necessarily there, but across the country, that they've taught it one way for 20 years, and God damn it, they're going to keep teaching it that way. They don't care what the studies show. They don't care what new experiences bring. Like that's how it's going to keep being taught.
And I'll use my search and rescue experience as an example. I taught it a certain way, you know, the old school hand on the wall, you know, use a webbing or a strap to get out from the wall, you know. And we go to a fire. I got an intern with me. I'm the firefighter in the back seat. I got 9-10 years on, something like that. I go to the front door with a line. Captain taps me on the head and says, "Hey, we're doing a primary search." Okay, I'm still taking a line with me. They haven't located the fire, and the last thing I want to do is stumble on the fire without a line. Again, that was the thinking at the time for me. Like, didn't know any better. Go in, follow the first in cruise line, and it's smoke right down to the floor. The fire had kind of snuffed itself out. Real dark. Don't ask me why I turned left for some reason. I couldn't tell you why I turned left. I have the hose with me. I'm crawling along. All of a sudden, there's a lady's face right in front of me, like 6 inches from my face. Okay, and this is how training can actually scar you a little bit. My first thought was, what the hell is a mannequin? And I didn't get mannequin through my thought process. Like, oh, that's a person. Drop the line, go to pick her up. She slides out of my arms like every victim does. Drop her up. You know, I'm trying to do the bear hug that, you know, you show in Fire One all the time. You know, it's in the JPRs at the end of the chapter, the bear hug or up underneath the arms. I'm trying to do that and it's not working. She slides out of my arms, ends up on the floor. Go to pick her up, turn around and run into my intern, who's like right behind me now. And at this point, we can kind of see they had vented. And I'm like, get out of my way. You know, never got on the radio like we teach. Never yelled victim, victim, victim. You know, first time I ever found somebody. And I had zero expectation of finding somebody when I crawled through the door. Get her out, go back in. She ended up not making it. They took her to the hospital, didn't make it. Went back in, and for some odd reason, we went upstairs. I can't remember why. We had reports of maybe a second victim upstairs because we had seen like a lift chair, or one of the other crews had seen a lift chair. Hindsight 2020, or come to find out later, I crawled within arm's length of her husband on the way to finding her. I literally crawled right by him. Had no idea he was there. That's how it crumbles. You know, I wouldn't say I beat myself up, but it's definitely a lesson. Like, hey, you know, maybe not take a hose line. You know, maybe you got a little more freedom of movement. Maybe you're a little quicker. So that was kind of my first, like, hey, maybe the way I'm teaching it isn't the best way. Kind of my first clue. So I started digging into it a little bit, and then I ended up, our department posted an ad for, I want to say probably one of Sean Duffy's first classes here in the state. And they said they'd pay for it. So I'm like, well, I'll go. I mean, I had this experience. It didn't go well. I need something here. So I want to make some improvements. I want to make sure my students and, you know, my young firefighters that are coming up behind me don't make the same mistake I did. So I go to his class, and it's extremely eye-opening, you know, and he goes through all of the firefighter rescue survey results, goes through all of his experiences, you know, goes through the 2 in, 2 out rule, which is now a hot topic again with the new OSHA posting. Fortunately, Wisconsin's not an OSHA state. Hopefully we stay that way. You know, we go through that whole, you know, he goes through his whole presentation. I'm like, okay, now I got something. Now I can, you know, now I can start where he, you know, he shows us that dirty drag that he does. He shows us the single person, you know, window removal, all those things. And, you know, and now I got some background. Now I can start trying to piece some, you know, puzzle pieces together and maybe work on some of these things. And that coincided with, you know, we switch shifts almost every year. I've been on a different shift every year the last 4 years.
Wow.
So, and that just out of pure luck coincided with me going to a shift that had some new officers, relatively new officers, that really wanted to learn stuff. And, you know, and me having enough time on the job now that, you know, guys start kind of coming to me with questions and things like that, you know. So we started kind of, for lack of a better term, wargaming some of these techniques and some of these things, and seeing like, okay, does this actually, you know, does this work for us and how we do things? And lo and behold, it was like, hey, this actually does work. This, like, so then I went to one of Nick Ladine's, I think I'm pronouncing that right.
Yeah.
Classes from Eau Claire. He came over to Oshkosh as part, giving a class as part of a benefit for one of their guys who lost their child. Sat in that class and got a little more on the statistical part, because you can't just say, hey, this isn't the way to do it anymore. You have to have some, you know, info and statistical backing for it. Sat through that. His, you know, it was an abbreviated presentation, but it was still pretty in depth. And then just this winter, I went back with a couple of our new guys down to that last class that Sean did. And there was some new stuff that he had in there from the last time I went through it. So, you know, it's a lot of it. I'm just fortunate in the timing that I got hired at the right time. I became an instructor at the right time. I had, you know, some of these transformative experiences at the right times in my career, with the right people getting into the right places, with, you know, new guys coming on the job, you know, so this job is 95% timing. It really is. Whether it's promotions, whether it's getting with the right crews, it's just pure timing, you know. And so, you know, that's kind of, as an instructor, you're always trying to, okay, how can I do this better? How can I get these lessons? How can I convince, you know, the brand new person that doesn't know anything, whether it's coming into Fire One, coming into recruit school, coming, you know, their first day on the job, and how can I convince that guy who's got 25, 27, 28 years on the job of doing it a certain way? And you have to be okay with some of those guys you're not going to convince, and that's okay. That it is what it is. You know, we've run fog nozzles by us since the beginning of, for as long as I can remember, long before and right now we're going through the transition process of going to smoothbore on our high-rise pack, and you want to talk about an uphill battle.
Yeah, we just got through it.
Unfortunately, right now our hoses aren't really spec'd for,
Yep.
so it's even more of an uphill battle.
Yeah, it's a big thing. We like Brendan said, we just got through it, but yeah, we had to order all new hose. We had to, it again, just like you were saying, the timing was perfect. Our hose was expiring; it was due to be replaced. So that coincided with the push for the smoothbore. So we just got FDNY spec and smoothbores, and now that's every hose line on all of our trucks except for the squad's bumper line. The trash line has a bubble cup on it still.
Yeah. So and I have mixed feelings on smoothbore versus fog. I mean, you use what you have.
Yeah. Whatever you have, you got to be good at it. Yeah.
So it just, you have to find a way. I just had a bunch of student coaches. It's their second semester coaching, or first semester coaching, second semester in the program, and they're all on volunteer departments spread out throughout the state. A couple of them are up north, a couple of them are down near Fond du Lac. And they were asking me, I take them all out to lunch after the semester because they're basically helping me out for free. So I take them all out for lunch, and they're asking me like, hey, we're bringing some of this stuff back to our departments, and we don't know, guys aren't being receptive to it. And I said, you have to figure out a way to get people to question it themselves. You can't just walk in the door and go, hey guys, you're doing it wrong.
Yeah.
The old backdraft scene of, they're sitting in the truck and, I think it's Axe or Bull or whoever goes to, Brian and says, you're doing it wrong. Well, sorry, but if you're a kid with a year on the job and you're going to a guy with 25 years on a job and you go, you're doing it wrong, probably not the best way to start off a conversation.
No.
You have to somehow figure out a way to get people to ask those questions on their own.
Yeah, absolutely.
And for me, it took a bad experience on a search and rescue to come to that conclusion, for me on a search.
Yeah.
And go, okay, maybe I'm not doing this the right way. Maybe there is a better way. I'll use ladders as an example. There's some people that will never, ever, ever throw a ladder off a low shoulder carry, ever, because that's just the way they were taught. They'll never do it. And then there's the flip side of that coin where high shoulder carry is the only way, And I go, okay, well, how's my truck set up? Like I'm on my Quint, my ladders come off at chest level. So I'm doing a low shoulder carry because I'm not going to try to bend down to get my shoulder under the ladder while it's still halfway in the bed and then try to stand up with it. On my engines, my ladders come off, at shoulder level for me. I'm short. Guess what I'm going to carry? High shoulder carry. Make it work. Ask yourself all the time, is this the best way?
Yep.
So it's always this game. You're never going to convince everybody.
Oh, yeah.
You're just not.
No.
But part of being an instructor, whether you're instructing brand new kids coming into a tech school program or an academy or however your area does it, coming into recruit school, first day on the line on the job, 20, 25 years on it, even, myself as an instructor, you have to figure out a way to get people to get something out of what you're presenting and get the most out of them. And not everybody's going to be that Kobe Bryant that shows up 3 hours before practice and, shoots 1,000 of the same shots. Not everybody's going to be there. Not everybody wants to be there. But you still have to figure out how to get the most out of those people that you can without turning them off to what you're trying to teach and demonstrate. Not everybody wants to throw ladders for the 8,000th time when you got 25 years on. So do you get them to stay involved by making it a scenario instead of going through the same process for the 8,000th time?
Yeah.
Do you make it into some kind of game or competition? That's part of being an instructor. It is.
Yeah, absolutely.
Involving them. Like, I had a captain who did not like training it, but the way I got him involved, if I was running training, I'd be like, hey, do you have any input on this? Like, you've been here 25 years. You've been a captain since I got hired. Do you got any, like, what have you seen? What what works, what doesn't? What do you have to look for?
Mm-hmm.
What are you as a captain? What do you want your firefighters to do while they're throwing a ladder? How do you want it thrown? What windows do you want prioritized? If you're ordering a firefighter to throw a ladder on their own while you're doing a 360, here's your opportunity to tell your, one firefighter, two firefighters, three firefighters, depending on how big the training is, how you want it done, so that you don't literally have to coach them as you're getting off the truck.
Absolutely.
And again, not everybody's going to buy into that, but to just throw your hands up in the air and go, I'm not going to worry about that guy.
Yeah.
That doesn't do anybody any good either.
Not at all.
Someone hurt.
So
Mm-hmm. Yeah, perfect. And with that kind of concludes our main question. Now we'll have our closing question for you. So first off, it's going to be your question from our last guest, Pruitt, and then next will be your task with your question for the next one, which is actually going to be our captain, Corey Braunschweig. So David's question from the last episode was, you can take out two things from the state firefighter class, like the curriculum, the stuff that you required to teach.
Mm-hmm.
What are they? And then you can add a few days on two areas. What are those?
Well, first and foremost, I get rid of the way we do ladder testing.
Yeah.
I get why it is the way it is, because the state wants everybody to get up on the roof. But if you get too much into teaching the test, you start teaching bad habits. The way the state test runs is the crew puts the ladder up, one person takes the roof ladder up, comes down the ladder. Second person goes up onto the roof, sounds the roof, comes back down, and then the third person goes up and brings the roof ladder down. You try doing that on a fire, it's going to be a very one-sided conversation with whoever's running the incident, and it's not going to be a pleasant conversation. So, that's one thing I would get rid of. The other thing I'd change is, and I'm probably going to get crucified for this, but knots. It's 2024. We have carabiners. Learn how to tie.
That's true.
Tie a figure eight on a bite. And use the carabiner.
I've never tied a clove hook or a clove hitch to a New York hook or a pike pole and raised it up a window to bring it there.
That's
I handed it to somebody. There you go.
Really coming from our context in the cities that I work in and in the valley here. We're not hauling stuff to the roof all that often. Mm-hmm. And I look at it this way: if I got to haul a rope bag up to haul something up to the roof, why don't I just take what I need in the first place? Be done with it. Now, if I got to take multiple things up, like I got to take a saw, I got to take a Halligan bar, axe, whatever. Okay, yep, I can buy into that. But for 99.9% of our incidences that we're going to the roof, how about I just take what I need in the first place?
Yeah.
Pretty simple. Like I said, I'll probably get crucified for that, but that's okay. Things I would add.
You only got two.
I could make the Fire 1 class a year long without trying.
Oh yeah.
I would add more fire. I mean, and I have a lot of fire in my class. I probably have a good 6 solid burn days at the end of my semester, and I get 16 weeks, sometimes 17, depending on how it falls. We're seeing less and less fires, especially in our area. So you're not given that opportunity for as much experience, and the more fires you can run, the better. The more nozzle time you can get, the better. The more curveballs you can throw, the better. I would say that the tech school as a whole, the fire protection program that we have fire built into every semester. You're fighting fire of some kind, if not multiple weeks in each semester. But more is always better. And when I say fire, I don't necessarily mean the burn room. I would love to throw the flashover simulator into Fire 1. It's probably a little bit advanced for that level, but as long as you put the procedures into place and
Yeah.
have knowledgeable instructors and, brief the students, the flashover simulator is relatively safe in the grand scheme of things.
And it really is the only, like, in terms of tech college or state level, where you can feel some kind of heat.
Yep.
I mean, those burn how hot we're allowed to get them. Like,
Yep.
you can push it a little bit, but still in those burn rooms, it's like especially our training center, we got probes in it still. Like,
Yep,
it's
we
still
do
under
have-
warranty.
Yep. We have
So-
an alarm system in our burn
Yeah.
rooms.
So, like, when you've got the flashover simulator, you can at least maybe start to feel that heat. You can start to feel it saturate on your shoulders a little bit. And
Yep.
you get those people who might freak out for it, might never do. Like, you're never gonna experience it. We've had this conversation with our live burns. Like, we talk about that the line's got to be in place. You got to be masked up before you go in. You can't have any furniture in there, any like wooden furniture. It's not getting hot. Like, it is not a real fire to anything at all.
And
Like,
that's one of those things. Like, you just sparked, something in the back of my head. I can't tell you how many times I've gone to a second floor fire and not even mask up until I'm at the stairwell. Like, I'm going to take a dry, 99% of the time, I'm taking a dry line to the stairwell, and I'm going to mask up either at the bottom of the stairwell or halfway up. If it's, I pop the front door and it's clear, I'm not masking up. I'm sorry. Not sorry. I'm going to save my air as long as I can.
Yeah.
So, and the other part of that fire component is we're fortunate enough to have, like, you remember the burn pods, or we call them the burn pods. They're basically two brick buildings that are basically furnished out. If I could figure out a way to incorporate those into the Fire One curriculum, because those will flash over. You will have to do overhaul. Obviously, I'm not going to put my students like right in the room and then light it on fire and flash over. But it's a really good tool for teaching, like, this is what you have to do at the door. Like, while you're waiting on your captain to do his 360 or your lieutenant or whoever to do their 360, this is what needs to get done at the door. This is what a hot door actually feels like. There is no paginite panels on this door. This is what a hot door actually feels like. This is what a door with fire on the other side actually looks like. There's not a gap underneath the door where you can see the glow. And hose can't travel underneath this door. Like, you have to know. Oh, this is what it feels like to take a New York hook or, one of them fiberglass 6-foot pike poles and drive it into a stud full bore and have it basically vibrate down your arms and, feel like
you found it.
Slot off on a baseball bat,
Found it.
Yeah. So, that's one area I would add, and then somehow, some way figure out how to make the search training more realistic. We're fortunate enough out at the school that I have a single story and a 2-story house that I can fill up with fake smoke, but it's still fake smoke. It doesn't act like real smoke. I can sock it in, right down to the floor, but it doesn't have the velocity. It doesn't have that darkness to it. And doing a search in the burn or burn tower, you do a search in there 2-3 times, you got it memorized. You've seen it, Bryce, when you come up and help out. My students have the burn tower, and we have a pretty big burn tower with, I would say, about 10 burn rooms we can choose from. They got it memorized. Like, whether it's doing a search, whether it's moving hose. I mean, hose line, it's very apparent. If I stand at this corner and I shuffle hose around this corner, and the next guy stands at this corner at the top of the steps, we're never getting hung up. So how do you make that more realistic? Whether, search in the houses, split search, orientated search, tick orientated search, one guy taking each room, hose line searches, ropes, how do you make that more realistic?
Yeah, absolutely.
I think those are the two things I would try to add to the program.
Awesome. I like it a lot. Those are all great answers. Kind of what we'd expect to hear from the priorities and the stuff that you do get to teach us when we're in there. Like you said, you found a way to bridge that gap and kind of turn the tables on it, that you're able to teach everybody how we actually do it. And then, right towards the end, go, okay, now here's how you have to do it for the state test. But then forget that, not forget everything you've learned. Now we're going to teach you how to do it. Just here's how you get past the state test and forget that.
Perfect example. We just had a long discussion, me and a couple of instructors. They're under the impression every student has to be at the door before you open the fire door to the actual burn room. They all have to be there, check the door for heat again. And the way I teach it is like, hey, when you're on the nozzle, you make the door, open the door, put the fire out. I don't care if your third person's still on the first floor.
You don't need 3 people on you for an 1 3/4 line to flow and hit line.
And depending on how you interpret the curriculum, some people make it, well, they're all not in contact. I'm like, state test says voice, visual, or physical. And if they're all on the hose line, they're all in physical contact. And if they can yell up and down the hose line, they're all in voice.
Mm-hmm.
All
And
on the umbilical cord.
yeah, and waiting 3 minutes or 2 minutes or even a minute for your third person to get to the door, recheck the door for heat, even though there's fire on the other side of it, you're not making anything better.
Nope.
In fact,
Making it worse.
you're
Yeah.
probably
Taking the
making it
time.
more dangerous by waiting for that third person. Just open the
Now
door.
you
Put
open the
fire-
door, now it's going to flash over on you because you've been waiting there.
Just put the fire out, and everything gets better.
Yep. Absolutely.
So those are kind of the things, like play within the rules, but bend them as much as I possibly can.
Playing the gray. Playing the
Yep.
gray. Awesome. Well, the last kind of part of the episode, thank you at this point for everything. You got some great insight, but next is going to be your turn. So we've come up with the questions. We've asked you the questions. Now you got to come up with one for, like I said, our next guest is going to be our very own captain, Corey Braunschweig.
Ooh. If you could go back into your career in one instance and change the trajectory of your career, when would it be and what would it be?
Probably when he agreed to be a captain over Brendan and I.
I can relate after having you two as students.
Full-time job.
Awesome. No, that's a great question. Oh, absolutely. No, that's a great question. I think he'll have a great answer for that. But no, we can't thank you enough for coming on. We can't thank you enough for the education you gave us. You really got us and many people, that we run into and that we discuss off on the right foot. I'm sure you saw by just us posting that you were coming on, the introduction, the amount of people that reacted and commented of how you helped them get started. So can't thank you enough for that and for taking the time to come and share your message some more.
Yeah, anytime, and hopefully see you guys up this way come fall. I won't be at the school this summer. I turn into a ghost.
Yeah, absolutely.
Usually
take some time, put into the family.
Usually about August, I start getting the itch to get back to teaching again. So
yeah.
But hopefully see you guys up here this fall, and maybe I'll see you at a couple trainings. If my schedule allows, and
absolutely.
If I've got the energy, teaching 3 days a week, I'll have 2 sections this fall, so I'll have 2 classes on Friday. That gets to be kind of a long semester with 60 to 80 kids coming through my principal class in fall. So
for sure.
All right.
Well, yeah, thank you very much for coming on. Thank you everybody for watching and listening. We appreciate it. Can't thank everybody enough. But as always, don't be a shitbag.
Thanks, guys. Really appreciate it.
Don't be shitbag.